Hello Enchanted ones, and welcome back. Today, join me as I give you a tour of my new altar, which may well be over 100 years old. Let me share with you its many curiosities, how I have set it up, and how I practice my craft within it. And it is a lot different than what it used to be, as because I've changed on the inside, it has shown on the outside. I share how I honour my inner child, speak to my ancestors, and even speak to the trees. But before I venture inside to share with you my altar, let me share with you my woods and how I practice and honour my craft here to become the ultimate forest fairy. If I haven't been into the woods for at least 2 days, I feel off balance and not myself, so whenever I get the chance to be within it, my goal is to 1. Be one with nature, 2. To honour my inner child, and 3. To be mindfully creative. And this is exactly what we are going to do together today. I feel very protective over these woods and have always felt drawn towards this woodland. I believe that the forest spirits have called me here to help heal myself and to spread the word of how healing nature can be. This particular place, the Healing Trail, has gotten so green and abundant recently, and as Litha is coming up, I feel its energy peaking. There are so many plants here to see, especially grasses at the moment, which this year I'm taking the time to draw each variety of grass as I find it. And I've come to realise that there are so many different varieties, some extra tickly, some sharp, and some like soft bunnies' tails. A dream I have is to eventually know the names and understand what each plant does here. But the knowledge will build each passing year and each season here. You would not believe the characters I've met down the trail recently. These huge foxgloves, some that tower over me. There are so many that are off the trail and they look so abundant together, and not a lot of people know this, but there is a secret path hidden amongst the holly bushes. Most would think that this holly would be sharp and prickly, but spring has been kind to us this year and allowed so much new growth on the holly that it is soft and soothing to the touch. So I carry the secret to the trail to these foxgloves, as I'm sure the spirits of the forest wouldn't want everyone finding out. Looking at a huge group of foxgloves together is like looking at a forest city for fairies. They are so elegant, some that I name the mother of foxgloves, but also some so tiny and perfect as they are, and I love to appreciate each as it comes. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you were to catch me talking to the foxgloves when no one else is in sight, or even frolicking down the paths. I often imagine my inner child walking next to me, holding my hand, and I ask her what she wants to do next. And it's always something silly. My inner child wants to be nurtured, but also I love to bring her out and show her who I am now. She would look up to me for sure.
Ooh, feather! I saw a feather!
And I want what's best for her now, so we embrace the woods together. I used to think that meditation was serious and still, but this is my meditation. It's about being present, being silly, and being open to what happens next. Because if I'm honest, I never know what each walk will bring, as I never plan it, including this one. Today I found this interesting looking stick on the path before me, and holding it up in the air, it resembled my tree friend in the distance, Okie Dokie. and to me this meant that he was calling me over. So I ventured there, and the only way to do that was going through another deceiving holly bush. Oak trees are thriving this time of year as the green man, the gardeners of the woods, are very active and in full abundance. This tree greets me with open arms, and I'm always so appreciative to see the fairy-drawn squiggling oak leaves. To talk to this tree, all I do is simply walk up with a kind heart, place my hand upon this tree, and leave my mind blank to see what it says. If it says anything at all, that is. Today, Okie Dokie told me, "You are not alone." Something I needed to hear, and it made me quite emotional. And maybe this message is something for you to hear today too. And if so, you are not alone. I realised that this hidden path to Okie Dokie was another path that led to the foxgloves, and I was back, this time with even more of them. And I just let go. Inner Alwyn came out, and all of my cares went away. This walk could have called me anywhere today, but each walk, wherever it may be, is absolute in its own way, and that's how I practice being a forest fairy. But when I'm not in the woods, I'm in the garden. This year, we have left the garden to do its own thing, and nature has been kind to us, and a lot of annuals even survived the cold winter. But I don't wear forest attire here. I call it Gothic fairy tale-esque. The point of me sharing you all of this is to share what I've been learning on my journey, and it is that being an adult is an act. The moment I thought I had to be an adult was the moment everything went wrong. And my practice now is about reliving my childhood in my so-called adulthood. But my childhood was far from dancing with the fairies and being with nature. I actually spent most of my childhood lost in an intrusive daydream, where I wished I could be with the fairies and nature. So now I am so lucky to have been able to stop daydreaming and start living a true, real life. So now we are rested after our walk. I'm very excited to share with you my new ways at my new, old altar. Hello Enchanted ones, and welcome to this very anticipated video. I say anticipated, but it's because I've probably had my new bureau space for about 3 months now, and I've kept telling you and teasing you about it. Of course, I was going to do a video on my new altar space because since I've changed so much, there's been so much more to tell you since my last altar video, which was I think about 2 years now. So I've changed a lot since then, but it's a really interesting video. So if you want to find that video and watch it, I think you'd probably learn a lot from that video too. But I have acquired a new altar since then. Well, I say new, but it's about 100 years old. I don't actually know how old it is, maybe even more than that, but it belonged to my granddad, and when my grandma and granddad were married, it then lived in their home for the remainder of their lives. It was always his place to store his little knickknacks, and it's just acquired such an energy from him and her, and it's something that I've always admired in their home. I am so honoured to have had the chance to own it now. So yes, here it is. My old altar was from Dunelm and it was so expensive, but it's not very well made. You can tell that this solid oak bureau has been made with great care. All the details on it are exquisite. Details like the carved legs, the beautiful tone of wood, which I did buff the other day because I knew my granddad would have wanted me to do that because he really kept on top of all of his possessions and treasured them. I also love the hand pulls that have little cherubs on each of them. I thought that was such a unique touch. and this emblem here, which looks a bit like a puppy to me. I don't know if it's meant to mean something, but one thing really did always stick in my mind with this bureau, and it is that it has a key, and the lock for this key is now living on my necklace. And this, you've probably seen me wear a million times before, but this locket belonged to my grandma and this key belonged to my granddad, so I kind of see it as a pair of them now living around my neck at all times, and I really treasure them and will do forever. The bureau, as I said before in my last altar video, it's a really great space to have an altar because you can close the door if you don't want anyone to see what's inside, if you're particularly working on something secret and meaningful to you. But because this one had a key and a lock, I thought even better, nobody can go snooping around through my stuff. Not like I have anything to hide, to be honest, because I'm an open book and usually it's just wide open and everyone can look inside of it. If anyone's got a problem, then that's their fault. So let us unlock the altar in the really awkward position that I always do it in. And all I need to do now is arrange a few things and then it'll be perfect. So, my new altar space is so different from my old altar space, purely in the nature of the objects and how many objects I have within. My last altar was full to the brim with so many items that I didn't use, so I wanted to fill this space with only objects that were of great importance to me. I wanted every compartment to be a compartment that I used frequently, so I could like open the drawers, I could go into little bits behind, and I wanted to be able to just use every compartment every day rather than leave one compartment to just go stagnant and stale for a year and not use it. The energy will be flowing a lot better in here now. I do use my altar every day, sometimes more extravagantly to do a ritual, or sometimes just in passing to draw an oracle card. I drew my map here at my altar and it lives on display on the top here along with these pieces of parchment. To be honest guys, this is just for display because I think it looks like I'm in the middle of some sort of quest in Fables Wood, and I really love the ambience that this kind of creates. But let's face it, I'm always on some sort of mission in the woods to answer a question or something. I also do some research here if I want to look anything up, or I look through my book of shadows here too. So there's a lot of things that I do at my altar, but I don't just strictly leave it for this area. Sometimes I'm at the piano, sometimes I'm at the seat in the cozy nook by the window, you know, so there's lots of different places that I'm open to reading or doing spiritual things around my house. It's not strictly this area for me, but one thing I do love doing is calling upon my ancestors here, because as you'll see, there's a lot of energies from them here, and that's partly one of the reasons why I was so honoured to have the bureau, because of the energy. When I say I do a ritual at my altar, I kind of mean a humble ritual. So I don't really do anything extravagant, and I'll have all the items at hand at my altar to do those rituals, which is mainly a candle, my voice, a piece of paper, and most importantly, the intent behind something. So I have kind of like stripped back all the other things I used to use, because the intent, and I can't stress that enough, intent is so important. start with the candles. At the altar I have 2 candles either side to kind of bring the energy and keep the energy within this space. I usually transfer them over to my piano and use them there because I see that as an altar to my piano. The candle I usually use is behind this sweet little picture, which is again from my grandma's house. I have fond memories of this picture. It is this fir cone candle here, which I have just like a humble tea light in it. The symbolism of one candle now gives me great pleasure. I light these candles with my electric lighter, which I keep in this drawer behind here. Of course, all my candles are magically lit by a wave of the hand, but when sometimes the fairies aren't around, I have to light it by an electric lighter. And my altar will have items that resonate with earth, air, fire and water, and that's something that I've kept going from my last altar because each is of great importance to me and I like to honour them here. And along, I should add, with the candle in this little compartment, I also have a silver coaster, again from my grandma's house. Thought it was really fancy. Who owns a silver coaster? I mean, fancy. I usually draw this out and I have a cup of tea on it. I always have a cup of tea at any given time, darlings. I am British, remember that. And again, I can use this little space here often, and it can be covered with the picture. Perfect. In the middle of my altar is my book. Not necessarily my book of shadows. I'm not really sure what to call it, kind of more of like a spiritual journal maybe, but all of the items on the altar are gathered around it to kind of magnify the energy of it. I take this book with me everywhere. I take it into the woods, I take it on some little quests around people's houses, just sometimes to write down my thoughts, sometimes to map out the woods. And it's nice to have a book where I can be a little bit more informal in and just write down some thoughts and just designs, things from the woods. So I keep this here. Again, I use this book in my rituals. I love it because it's got a binder in the middle, so I can rip pages out of it and I'll write down some words maybe that I want to repeat, or maybe then I'll burn the piece of paper in my little cauldron, which I have at my altar space too. I could not put my mini cauldron out. It has to be on display here. So this cauldron lives on the right hand side in this little cupboard. It's just literally that. So yeah, it's very bare. There's not much going on here, but it's very important to me. I have my quill, which is on this side. I don't really use it too often because when I do, I make a massive mess, but I use it to write down rituals because I feel like it's more meaningful. Again, I'll say that a million times in this video. On this side behind here, I have my ink. They're not together because I like scrambling for an item like on the other side and looking through it. So I have some ink here, but I mainly use in this little drawer here my stick pen because it's so much easier to write with. I do like making a mess sometimes, but not all the time. So yeah, my stick pen plays great importance to me there and it just looks perfect. When I sit down at my altar, I really love to set the mood, set the tone with a simple scent, and it is the same scent I've been using for a long time now, which is Kojo no May with cinnamon. It has this zesty, grounding feel, and when I spray it, my mind frame clicks into that self-care feeling from this scent. So I really love how scents can manipulate our brains into feeling a certain way. So this is something I use a lot. So many of the things that you'll find here are just things that have meant something to me on a walk. For example, I have my box of nature here. This is something I made in a DIY video last year, I think it was, so it looks like it's covered in roots, and I really love this one. I'm really impressed with how it came out actually. And in here you'll find just the little gems I found within the woods. A piece of silver birch that was cut like a square, some hazel cones, a magnolia bud that hadn't opened. Oh, I love this. This is a piece of bark from a eucalyptus tree that I thought was really cool. It's like paper. And a wishbone stick. That's cool. Oh, and I've got so much in here, guys. I'm so enthusiastic. This is a dandelion seed. I keep those in here too. So sometimes I just like looking through the box. Sometimes I might craft with these items too if I really want to, but mainly I just use it for a box of kind of memories from the woods. Along with that, you'll see I have lots of oak leaves here on the table, not because I just randomly pick a whole bunch of oak leaves from a tree, but because these oak leaves fell from the grandmother tree that's the end of my garden, and I feel like she leaves me little offerings sometimes, so I put them at my altar space to honour that. And because Litha and the summer solstice is coming up, I am honouring the oak and these leaves at the moment, which I've missed so much this year. Also on the left here I have two wands, stick wands. This one is really important because I found this with one of my best friends at a beach, and I've still got it now. It's a fir tree stick. This one is from a silver birch tree, and I found it at a time where I was just having too many thoughts, and it told me basically to shut up. And it said I need to put the wand to my third eye and it will clear my mind, and lo and behold it did. So I decorated this in a past video this year just to symbolise what it meant to me, but I use this sometimes in my meditations too. I also have a huge box of nature below here with bigger items of nature that I can't fit in my altar space. And I guess the most meaningful thing from nature in here, oh, forgot about this one. This is my fairy finder. We can look through the hole and see if you can find a fairy. This is from a fir tree. How cool is that? A magnifying glass. So in this envelope, I collect leaves from my travels, and they might be in the woods or they might be from a different country. This leaf I've been using for my save the dates for my wedding, which is very exciting. This is an oak leaf from the fairy portal, a massive oak tree that has a huge door in it. It's very whimsical, one of my favourites. I have two leaves here from trees in Ponta Delgada that I went to last year. Oh my goodness, you would not believe this huge, I think it was a fig tree that we saw, but it was massive, and I really think you appreciate how Lord of the Rings-esque it looked. I also have, hang on, which one's from which country? This one is from Nova Scotia, and these two are from Central Park, which we went to in the autumn, and it was heavenly. So these, I think I'm going to be using all of these leaves in some sort of montage collage picture of leaves around the world. When I am here at my altar space, I mainly, like I said, draw oracle cards every day and call upon my ancestors. And I have two hacks here which live behind this little book, as I can't take that they aren't the right colours. I have my Earth Magic Oracle deck, and this one I use mainly. It has metaphors that tie in with the elements and with nature, so this is a very important deck to me. I also have the Oracle of the Fairies. This one I really love too because it ties in everything with a whimsical fairy. What does it say here? May you discover your fairy wings inside the sanctuary of your precious heart. Aww. So yeah, I would recommend both of these Oracle decks. On the left here, I have a tarot deck, but I use it for an oracle card deck. Don't really like to use tarot cards anymore, just because using tarot card decks always makes me on edge in my life. I just like to honour what the moment has to tell me and then make something of my future from the present, if that makes sense. So I have this magical Enchanted forest deck here. The actual packaging that this came in wouldn't fit in the bureau, and I was really sad. But what I managed to do was I placed the cards in this wooden box that I burnt a couple of years ago. I burnt this lovely goddess into it, and they fit perfectly inside. I think this is what this box was actually made for, because I never actually had anything to put in it before. These are really beautiful cards again. All the drawings are so whimsical and childlike but adult at the same time. I can't say what that means to me. When I draw a card, I will place it in my oracle card holder that I made last year. I found these two sticks in the woods, one that was straight with a line through it and another one here with some moss on it, and I just stuck them together and put a little butterfly on it there too. The butterfly symbolises air and purity. I just love the symbolism of a butterfly. It has such a childlike spiritual meaning behind it. Today I got lightning. This is just a little deer. No meaning, just I got it in a Kinder Egg. So it lives up here and has a great life, basically. When I'm drawing my oracle cards, I call upon my spirit guides, my angels, my ancestors to guide me to make the best decisions that day. And it's something that has grown with me, this idea of my ancestors are with me at all times. And I know they are because I can feel them and they talk to me. And to feel that connection, the energy does need to be just right for me. So within my altar, I have placed a lot of items that are meaningful for my family and me too. As I said, this bureau belonged to my granddad. When I first acquired it, it had items that were just his everyday items. My granddad was an electrical engineer, so I found so many light bulbs. These are car light bulbs too. These random things, I think they are batteries too. And there's a little box there with all of them in too. They are decades old, whatever these things actually are. Here is a little switch, which I thought was sweet. And these all meant something to him at some point. Oh, there's a really cool one back here too. What? Have you ever seen something like that before? I reckon somebody who collects light bulbs would have a field day in here. I don't really know what to do with them at the moment. I think I'm just going to acquire their energy and have their energy in this box. Oh, some chalk that he used. The days of using chalk, lovely. And really interesting, they were called them back then invisible mounts, but we know them as plasters. Look at this family on the label. How old are these? You can't use them anymore, they're all dried up inside, but I thought that was such an amazing piece of history in really good condition too. It's from W.H. Smith and it was 40p, and these plasters were hidden down the side. They must have been lost down the side, and I wonder if he was ever thinking, where are those plasters? I also found a Sainsbury's bank cheque, interesting, and a piece of a newspaper from November 28th, 1988. It's talking about steel and it's talking about stocks. That definitely sounds like my granddad, and he's done some like maths at the top there too. Just to have his handwriting feels so special to this. So yes, all the items go into this little box. There are many more items that I keep in the drawers that I also found in here, but I thought that these are probably the most meaningful items to them and to me too, so I keep them out here. I also have this Lily of the Valley soap. I found this randomly when I was looking around a fair one day, and when I smelt it, it just made me cry so much because it reminds me of my grandma, the soaps that she used to have, and it's amazing how a smell can trigger your brain to go back to just a beautiful time. So I'm so glad I found that, and I smell it when I open it, the whole space up too, so it's just a waft of my grandma's smell. I'm glad she didn't smell like mothballs. One more thing that reminds me of my ancestors is my tree, which I showed you last time. I hadn't actually filled it up then, but now I have filled it with pictures of all of my ancestors, going back to my great grandma and granddads from both sides at the bottom here, and leading their way up to my grandma and granddad there. And I cannot believe my mum has done so much research into finding these pictures. And I have my grandma's mum here called Ivy, who I feel like I've got a very strong connection to. So yeah, having them here at my altar is something that I personally have felt that I wanted to do. You might not feel like you want your ancestors or any sort of energy like that at your altar space. It's just something that I'm very much into. I wanted to represent my element of Aquarius, which is air. So I have a lot of things that represent that. One being my fairies. These fairies, guys, I'm so glad you like them. This one's called Holly, and of course she represents air because she likes to fly everywhere. These fairies, I do not make them. They're from a site called fairygoodies.co.uk, but we find them at a fair we go to every Christmas, so I always buy one there. And they were originally Christmas decorations, but they've become so much more than that. She's a little bit scraggly now because she's been through a lot, but I love her so much, and I have two more around here somewhere too, being cheeky somewhere. I also have this, and this was at my old altar too. This is my dandelion paperweight, and it was at my mum's dressing table. Gosh, for my whole life I remember seeing it there and thinking, oh my gosh, the life that this dandelion must have had. It just brings that sense of nostalgia, and that's something that I'm very much into, and have also realised that it's something that I need to honour my inner child and the nostalgia that was me when I was growing up. So I have this beautiful hand crafted box that I burnt a couple of years ago, and within it I have things from my childhood in there, such as this handkerchief that I always used, this little tortoise I got in year 6 that smells like sweet rubber, this little mouse that me and my best friend got gifted when we went to this fair randomly, a little cat that is drinking some milk. I love looking through these items, sometimes when I'm having a bad day or sometimes when I'm just feeling nostalgia. There's nothing like that feeling of looking back, but also bringing it into the present now. So I have a picture of me up here when I was a ballerina, and oh, hi. I was doing my video.
You didn't answer my calls.
Sorry. And along with that, I have a picture of me as a ballerina when I was younger. Having this here is a great reminder of my inner child, what I used to love, and just trying to embrace that and inflict that on my everyday. There's one more thing to show you down here, and it's something that I guess it's kind of more of a newer thing to my altar, but more of a temporary thing. I found this really sweet mint sauce container at an antique shop and I had to have it, but it stayed at my altar for a few weeks and I thought, that looks really nice there. And how often do I have mint sauce anyway? I mean, I'll keep it at my altar and it just be kind of like a little pot for some of my whimsical things. But for our wedding, we are collecting keys. If you've seen my secret garden video, you will have known that when I got this bureau, I found a key in one of the drawers, and it was a key that either belonged to my granddad or my grandma, that was either to a really whimsical door of a castle or a secret garden, or maybe an airing cupboard. It could have been anything, to be honest, but I loved the look of it, and since then I've been obsessed with keys and their symbolism, which means like hope, luck, new beginnings, going into a new realm and transformation. And it's a theme that we are bringing into our wedding because we are going around antique shops. You know I love going to antique shops, and we are collecting all the whimsical looking keys we see there, and we're going to have a board covered in moss, and a key is going to be a gift for everyone there, and we're going to hang their name and their table number from it. So that is something that is ongoing, but I need to find 70 old keys. And in here too, this is more of a new thing to my collection, but I bought this a couple of weeks ago at this really sweet festival that we went to, and I thought, what a cute spoon. If I was to ever have a cup of tea here that I needed to stir with a special spoon, that's the one. So I think that is everything down the bottom here. Let us draw our attention to this space at the top of the altar, and I love how it towers above me and it makes me feel like I'm in this grand place because of the book there and because of my cabinet here, which I found at an antique shop too. The top of my bureau hasn't changed too much since the old one, but one thing that I have added and would not go without now is my ivy and my real life plants. They have such an impact on the air and the purification and the protection of this space. I have to have ivy now. Ivy's such a whimsical plant. Purifies the air, so it represents the element of air, but also I take cuttings from my garden and I put them in these little containers. I love this one especially, the little like bulb look of it. The way the roots grow within the water is so hypnotic, and yes, there is water here, so this represents the element of water, of course. I've put some more oak leaves that fell from the grandmother tree into water here just to see what happens. They might die, they might survive, they might grow roots, and they have my own little mini oak tree. I hope that is the case. Also here behind the tree we have my thimble container, which was £2 at a charity shop, but I don't use it for thimbles. Actually, you will find, one thimble in it. My uncle bought me this thimble back from one of our favourite places in Devon called Beer. Also, I have crystals in it, all basically green or brown, kind of earthy, loving crystals. I just love those frequencies. We have some acorns from the wood, a fir cone from the woods here, acorn containers, smoky quartz. We also have here a brooch that was my grandma's. I love this. Isn't it just the most elven thing you've ever laid your eyes on? Down here, oh yes, we have an observer book here. Do you remember these? This was my grandma's. The day my grandma passed away, we saw this beautiful comma butterfly in my mum's garden, and it was like bouncing off of us. It was just so bizarre how it was behaving, and it just kind of watched over us for about 20 minutes, half an hour. And since then I've had a fascination with butterflies because, of course, I think of my grandma now when I see butterflies, and also the element of air and freedom, which she really possessed that too. Gonna get emotional. On the other side Here we have my Book of Shadows. This is heavenly to me. I love looking at it. I'm so glad I spent all the hours I did crafting this. It looks like it's been found on a forest floor and I've just brought it in here. So, the cabinet. This used to be a crystal cabinet, but as you can see, there is no crystals in this anymore. The reason why is because I took them out. I put them all around my home now. With the door closed, what's the point of having it? There's going to be no frequencies of the crystals coming out, so I've used this for some of my other objects now too. And I do have a few crystals here. Sorry, I should mention here, I have tourmaline down here for protection and get rid of negative energy, and I have a hematite crystal there to do a similar thing. I love black crystals with a passion, just to release that negative energy that often builds up in my home, I'm not gonna lie. But also I have a lot of fluorite and jade too, to attract positive energy, good luck, and just a loving feeling. Here I have my Fairy Finder 3000, which is jade, and if you look through it in the forest, you'll begin to see some curious things. Oh, and we also have this necklace here that was given to me and brought to me by my friend, and I thought it was really unusual because the same weekend I was given this bureau. This symbol matched, give or take a few lines, the symbol on the front, so I really loved how it played a part in this whole scenario. So let's open her up and see what we have inside. Down here I have all of my little offering jars, spell jars that I've used before, some herbs that I've got. I just love little jars, and this is one space that is quite cluttered, I'm not gonna lie, because I just love the look of it. I have my little brush here which I expand, and then I can brush away anything that no longer serves me here. It actually is a good duster if I'm honest, because it does get dusty around here in really awkward spaces. What do I have here? A spell jar for protection there. I have a spell jar for self-love here. I have tick away. Now this is going to be used a lot this year. It's been a long time since I've got a tick, and this is, I hope, is the reason for it. It's by a company called A More Natural, and I highly recommend it. I haven't got a tick, but I would say still be careful, but it just basically makes your scent different so that you repel the ticks. I've even got the tiniest little bottles in here full of sweet little things from the woods. This is very important to me because last year my mum and I went on a cruise. One of the stops was Nova Scotia. One of my relatives was on the Titanic, but his body was found and actually buried in Nova Scotia. So we really wanted to go over and honour his grave. It was such an emotional experience. The whole tour was watching us cry together, but I had to pick up some of the grass that was underneath his grave just to honour the ancestors and have that piece of energy here too. You also find just memories from holidays in jars, like a piece of moss, some rosemary seeds here, just so, you know, I might want to burn them sometimes. That's my little cabinet of curiosities here. There we go, stay. Oh no, I can't fit them all back. Okay, put that one there. And that one. Stay. In this shelf we have my brooches. These brooches I love to wear in the woods. I love having a brooch. I think it tells such a story, and it's just that extra accessory that you can have that tells a story. And we have a little piece of yew tree stick that I found a couple of years ago. Again, amazing story behind it, but I won't go into that. Some of these brooches belonged to my grandmother. She loved to rock a brooch. Since then I have acquired my own. I particularly love this brooch here that I found in Bath in a really tiny antique shop. You can touch the little spikes at the end here and it will cut you. And I thought it was such a powerful symbol of protection. So I have put a protection chant upon this. You saw me wearing it in the woods, and very much so I need protection out in the woods. So I wear this often in there too. So this shelf is as simple as it gets. We have some dried ivy either side here. We have this little bear friend of mine. I love using this when I dissociate and I hold him if I ever have a really bad spell, and then I just see him as this soft little gentle figure to bring me back into the present moment. And he sits on a crystal, the one crystal that's actually in this cabinet, I should probably charge it, which is tiger's eye, a raw tiger's eye. So he sits there and he's kind of like the warrior of the cabinet. We do have a few things here which I absolutely adore, and they're the cutest things ever. I bought this at a fairy festival last year. It's a fairy tea set, just in case I get a bit thirsty. I know British fairies might like a cup of tea as much as me, hopefully. We have some sweet little mushrooms here. That was a gift to me from Ben. I just think they're just so adorable here. And we have this terrarium, which is, I guess, still living. I made this quite a few years ago now. It's on its last legs, but I still want it here. I still want to see what happens to it. So yes, that's still here for now. And this, again, was at my last altar. It's an old style pencil sharpener that doesn't work, but it was my grandma's, and it's got some pencil sharpenings in there, actually. I wonder when they were from. Goodness me. So yeah, that's just another bit of energy there. I look really suspicious on the side here. Okay, it's fine, it's fine. So I have a couple of things up here too. Now, this book is my wedding planning book. I haven't done too much wedding planning apart from what you heard me say today about the save the dates and the keys, but I'm really excited to start and bring you on that journey. You might know already, you might not know, but it is going to be Secret Garden themed, and the date of it is going to be February 1st, which is on Imbolc. I love Imbolc. It's got a very strong meaning to me because I'm a February baby. I'm an Aquarius. I also have here this little satchel that I made. I don't think it's got anything in it at the moment because when I come home, I hang it up after collecting things in it in the woods, and I think it's such a sweet little addition. I'm really happy I made that. Last but certainly not least, I have had the best, most perfect gift recently of this picture of me, Alwyn Oak, and it is by an artist called Mahulda Jelly. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And she's on Instagram, and I'll leave her link below. But I cried when I saw this picture and that she'd drawn it of me because of all of the details and the subtle things that she put in that are so important to me. So for example, oak leaves, my 3 fairies. I haven't even shown that fairy that much, and she's still popped him in and still known about it. The little clip I wear in my hair sometimes, and most importantly, I'm gonna cry, the key and the locket that are on my necklace. He's put that and drawn that at the bottom, and my fairy festival dress that I wore last year. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for drawing this picture. It means the world to me. It is perfect and I'll treasure it always. So really check her out. She's such an amazing artist. So in Enchanted ones. I hope you have enjoyed this altar tour, this very in-depth altar tour, I must add. I wasn't expecting to go into so much detail, but I have really enjoyed doing this because I guess this is where it's at. This is the main thing that I spend my time at. Well, I say that, but a lot of the time, of course, I'm out in the woods, but also my practice most indefinitely revolves around music and the way music makes me feel. So I will be playing my piano and I will be using the vibrations of the notes to tune into my chakras, and also I'll be using my tuning forks to vibrate through also. So that is a big part of my practice that I'd like to share with you at some point too, if you'd like that. But again, thank you so much. I will see you very soon. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. All my love, Alwyn.